Hello. Hello. This is Hannah with Hannah Crafted Gifts. I'm just getting set up for the 2 o'clock demonstration as part of this weekend's two-part stamp along. I think this may be the very first time we've had a stamp along that has been split between 2 days and part on a Sunday instead of all on a Saturday. I'm not positive on that. Excuse me for reaching. I'm checking my computer to make sure I'm live. But looks like I am. So if you have joined on this Sunday afternoon, I'm so glad you're here watching live. Please let me know you're here. My favorite thing about doing these lives is that I get to participate with y'all. And so yeah, and if you're watching on replay, please still feel free to interact. Comment and answer any questions I throw out there in the comments throughout. So again, my name's Hannah with Hannah Crafted Gifts, and for today I'm going to be showcasing a couple products that really could have been part of a suite in the July to December mini catalog, or holiday catalog as I usually refer to it, that is coming to an end here as it is already December. Can't believe it. So I'm going to be using the Classic Cloche bundle, which includes the Classic Cloche stamp set and the Cloche Dies. I'm also going to be using, in some of the samples that I'll show besides what I'll be demoing, the Cloche shaker domes. This is pages 22 and 23 of our current mini catalog. And then also, this is the part that could have been bundled with those, the Sweets and Treats stamp set from page 11. It uses those same Cloche dies, and I find is a little maybe more Thanksgiving themed than Christmas themed. So I'm going to be sharing what I offered for my November class, which was a Thanksgiving/Christmas class. People could choose either from the Thanksgiving package of products, the Christmas package of products, or both if they wanted it all, kind of all bundled into, again, a makeshift suite. But what I'm going to be showing you today is the 3D project from that class. So here it is. Hopefully you can see it. I'm trying to make sure this view is working, and sorry for the light. The sunlight is pouring in, which is lovely, but a little glaring and causing some interesting shadows here. But this little treat box is very simple. I just came up with the dimensions and everything on my own. And I know most of you who are watching this live on the Sunshine SU Demo Stamp Along have probably made a lot of treat boxes, probably much more fancy than these. But I'm trying to remind myself, as much as I love fancy projects, that for beginner crafters especially, it's good to at least start simple, or at least offer that simple option. So hopefully this can still be helpful to you who are maybe still learning the basics, or for your customers or friends who are learning the basics. So it's a little 4x4 treat box. Opens up, and you can see the kind of mistake I made on that one. But you could put a cookie or some other little treats in there, and I call it a window treat box because of course you can see through the vellum. I'll talk about some different ways you could do that if you didn't want to see through to what was inside, but I thought that was kind of fun. So this one says bring on Christmas. This one says it's the most wonderful time of the year. I'm going to make another one of this one since we're kind of moving on from Thanksgiving leading into Christmas to Christmas being upon us now. So we'll go ahead and get started, and then at the end hopefully I'll have time to show you some other projects from that class, some cards using these products. So I'm going to go ahead and do everything right here on camera. So if you haven't already prepped and you're stamping along, feel free to just go as I go. So I'm taking the standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of basic white paper, and I'm cutting it down to 6 by 6. So it doesn't matter since it's all going to be 6 by 6. Usually I'm thinking about, which way to cut, portrait or landscape, to conserve paper. But since it's a 6 by 6 square, it doesn't really matter which way you cut it. So there's that. And then for this is our base, of course, of the box. You could use a different color cardstock if you wanted to. I was going to be doing this, like I said, as a class, and so I'm not sure which inks my customers would have. I thought let's just stay basic white, and then they can use whatever they'd like. Anything coordinates with white. But we're going to go ahead and score this, and the base is scored at 1 1/16. I know that's strange, but that's so that it's a little smaller than the top of the box, which is going to be scored at 1. So that way, hopefully, it fits just inside without there being too much wiggle room, but without it being too tight. So I'm actually going to use this part of my paper trimmer, which I always forget about. But I'm going to go to 1 1/16, and I'm going to score that. Let me move my cutting blade up. That'd be a mistake to cut instead of score. I'm going to score it 1 1/16 on all 4 sides. Again, super simple little treat box. I'd love to hear for y'all watching again live or on replay what kind of treats you like to give or get at this time of year. I know one thing that is a tradition in my family, which wouldn't fit in this treat box, unfortunately, are those chocolate oranges. That is just Christmas to me. I always get one in my stocking. And I'm sorry, I just realized I'm holding this probably a little high. So let me move this down so you can see. I was pointing to this part of my paper trimmer. That's what I'm using to measure the 1 1/16 for my base. And now I'm going to do it at 1 inch all the way around on my DSP. So of course, I'm using DSP to make the top of the box. And this is the Assortments, the 6x6 DSP assortments that come in all of our color collections. And so these are already 6x6, which is great. I'm just checking the names of things on my computer. So if you were using 12x12 DSP or some other product of designer paper, then you would just cut it down to 6x6. And then again, we're going to score on all 4 sides, this time at 1 inch. Again, 1 inch for the top, 1 1/16 for the bottom, so that it's a little smaller square and it fits inside this one. As I'm doing this, I'm reminding myself that you don't want to score as fiercely on DSP. It is obviously thinner than your cardstock, and so it can tear if you're forceful with it. So just a lighter touch when you're scoring the DSP. So now that we've got those done, I can move my paper trimmer out of the way. Again, sorry you couldn't see those earlier scores or maybe cuts. But again, now I have 2 6x6 pieces. This one scored at 1 inch on all 4 sides. This one scored at 1 1/16 on all 4 sides. All right, so now I'm going to do some quick little cuts. So I'm not cutting anything off yet. I'm just cutting up on this 1 1/16 score line to the perpendicular score line. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And then I'm going to flip it and do the same thing, cutting up from the bottom, so not cutting in from the sides and cutting off those flaps, because those are going to fold in and make my box. And of course, you don't have to do any cutting to make a box. You can also just pinch these and fold them in, but then there's a little bit more bulk on the corners, and that I find can be a little tricky, again, especially when you're trying to fit a lid on precisely, so I like doing it this way. Now I am going to cut just a little bit off, and that is to miter the edges. So I'm going to cut. Again, this is so basic, I know for some of you, but for others not. It wasn't for me once upon a time, and sometimes I still forget to miter my edges. So I'm going to cut just a little sliver off from, maybe a 1/4 inch or less in up to this score line at an angle, so that I get this little triangle sliver. And that's just going to make it a much cleaner line when I fold these flaps in, so that it won't be like showing up above. In case that doesn't make sense for anyone who is new. So if you were to just fold this in, you might see that little bit of cardstock peeking up. But with the mitered edge, you won't. It's going to hide behind there. You might at the very edge. I might have to miter that a little more. But the idea is that you won't, at least. Okay. So I'm just mitering all 4 of these edges. And I am a fussy cutter, so I'm trying to be quick for y'all. And sorry if it's hard to watch. Feel free to jump ahead if you're watching this on replay. Okay, so I can get those 4 little slivers out of the way. I'm going to do the same thing to my top. And this DSP is not directional. I just realized that I wanted to use this side of the DSP. So I should have scored on this side, but it's no big deal. I can still fold it the opposite way. But this is the side that I want to have show, because this other box I did with the plaid side. And this time I want to do kind of the snowflake side, if you're creative. To see snowflakes in that, I don't know, it's a little bit of a stretch. But it doesn't matter which way I cut it, and since the score lines are a little bolder on this side, I will cut it over here. So I wanted to do slightly more traditional Christmas colors. So those first samples I showed, let me pull them back in view. This is Pool Party and Petal Pink. And I chose those colors because I was also, you'll see on some of the other projects, and I was making them all coordinate, I was using Smoky Slate and Crumb Cake, and I thought that that light blue and light pink just went really well with those. It kind of looks like baby shower colors, I realize now, but this time I'm using the Night of Navy, and I actually have prepped to make another one of my kind of Thanksgiving leading into Christmas ones with Mary Merlot. So there's that. You can see it gotten a little eaten up in my die machine because I didn't line up the paper just right. So learn from my mistakes. All right. So I'm going to miter these edges real quick. So let's see. I asked y'all what treats you like most to give or get at Christmas. How about now treats that could fit in this box? Again, I mentioned maybe a cookie. I'm going to be having a cookie swap. I don't know if y'all do holiday cookie swaps. in about a week with some neighbors. So a special cookie could go in there and a special little presentation of it to someone. I'd love to know your thoughts. All right, so now I've got everything cut and mitered. So now I need to cut out with my dies. So this is where the classic cloche dies are going to begin to come into play. So you can see I've already used it to cut out on here, on my next one. And you're not going to have a lot of space, at least with this die. If you're using different dies, you might have more. But you can see, you know, even on the box here, you need to go almost all the way to the top and then leave some space down here at the bottom for your sentiment. So in the instructions, which I just posted a couple hours ago, if you're watching on Sunshine SU Demos, or if not, I'll have it posted in my comments and on my blog. But you'll want a piece of coordinating cardstock, so in my case basic white, that is just bigger than the stamp you're going to use. I just realized I didn't get my stamp ready, but that's okay. I have it right here close. So I'm going to be doing It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year again from the classic Cloche stamp set. Let's see, which one is that? Right here. And so for me, that is about 3/4 by 3. You wouldn't want to go much more than 3/4 because you could see it won't fit here under at least the cloche die. And you wouldn't want to go longer than 4 inches because that's how big your box is, of course. So now I've got that ready to go. Crisis averted. So I'll be coming back to stamping in a minute. But first I want to do some die cutting. So I'm going to move some stuff out of the way here. And bring up my die cutting machine. I still have the oldie but goodie here. And again, I wanted to do everything start to finish, especially if you are watching as a beginner or sharing this with beginners. And I do want to have my flaps that I've cut facing up and down. I don't think that really matters, but that's how I did it before, so that's how I'm going to do it again. And I do want to center the cloche side to side, so between my score lines here. And then again, have it pretty close to the top, not too close because I don't want to cut off the top of my cloche bell. But I want to have plenty of room for my sentiment down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to slide that up a little bit. Does that look centered to y'all? I can't really lean in because of my camera, so hopefully it does. If not, again, you can learn from my mistakes. I was going to say that was going through so quiet, but we still got the pop at the end. That can be scary when you're using this machine for the first time or even for the 50th time. It sometimes still gets me, but nothing has broken yet. It's the sound of it working, I guess. As long as your sandwich isn't too thick. Okay, so I think that turned out pretty centered. I'm pleased with that. We'll see a little better when I fold it up. So let me pull my base back in here. So we're going to build our box. So, oh, and you know what? I realized I did the wrong side again. So I guess I am going to use the plaid side. I'll have my snowflakes on the inside because now that I've die cut, you can see there's a little bit of roughness on this side. I could have that show, but I'd rather not. So I'll just go plaid again. Plaid's very Christmassy. I just wanted to change it up. But they'll still see that on the inside, which is nice, whoever gets this little treat box. So I'm just folding on all my score lines. You can fold first, and it does make it a little easier because you fold the flaps all at once. But I don't know about you. I find when I cut on score lines, I end up with that roughness along the edge. Here I have some roughness because I what's it called? I over-scored, and that's why I warned you guys about that. But luckily that's going to tuck in. Okay, so I'm folding on all these score lines too. I don't know about y'all, I am quite behind on Christmas projects this year, maybe every year, which as someone who makes paper crafts for kind of a side living is a bit embarrassing, but there's still time. It's only the first weekend of December, so I just got to get on it. All right, so I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue. I find this is my preferred adhesive, and I do think it's a good one for beginners because you get a little bit of wiggle room or wiggle time to work with the wet glue as opposed to something like our Stamp and Seal. So I'm just going to put a little glue on the outside of one side of flaps. I do both at the same time. I find that works. I think one of the funniest things is having to tell adults how to use glue. Like, not funny like laughing at them, but like I feel silly about it. And so I'll always say, like, I know you learned how to use glue when you were in kindergarten, but this glue, you know, can be a little tricky. A little bit goes a long way, which is good to know. You don't want to put it too close to the edge because it is super sticky. So when it oozes out, it'll get your fingers all messy pretty quick. So I just kind of make fun of myself as I tell people that so that they don't feel silly, hopefully, by getting messy with their glue or being told how to use glue as an adult. But it is worth noting. And better to be told, I guess, than to learn the hard way. Although, you know, how bad can it be? You just wipe the glue away, but still. I've had some people get really sticky and be a little frustrated by it. So, I get it. I like to have clean fingers too, especially when I'm making a little work of art or trying. All right, so there's my box base, super quick and easy. And then I'm going to do the same thing on my top. So, whoops, I almost did it on the inside. So again, I'm putting glue on the outside of my flaps. I do always also remind people, and please include your beginner tips and tricks, or even more casual or avid crafting tips and tricks that you all have, maybe doing similar things. But I always tell people to put glue on the smaller piece. So instead of putting it on these small side flaps, you could put glue on the big center flap, but then you risk the chance of putting it past where the smaller piece is going to land. And again, then you got a sticky situation, literally. So I would say instead of putting it here and trying to, guesstimate where this little piece is going to end up, just always put it on the little piece. I wish I could have Christmas music playing. I made the mistake of having Christmas music on in the background for one of my show and tell videos recently. And afterwards, my husband texted me and he was like, just so you know, that might be copyright infringement. You might have your post removed. So I had to edit it because I didn't want that to happen. I would sing for y'all to make it festive, but I think that would actually be more of a negative than a positive. Okay, so I probably shouldn't have glued this together yet, but I was getting excited about the project and about Christmas. One thing you can do is you can test before you put together your lid to make sure it's going to fit. But again, because we scored the bottom at 1/16 narrower, it is a perfect fit. And what I do is put two sides in, and then if I need to kind of push in on one side just to get the corners in, I can. And then it evens out once it's in there, and that works quite well. The other thing that helps is making our little notches. So you can see on this one, I have little notches on the sides for ease of opening. And this is a retired Stampin' Up! Product, the Circle Punch. But if you had our Circle Dies, or even wanted to fussy cut this out, you certainly could. It wouldn't even have to be a circle, honestly. You could have a different punch and just have a different shape that pops out of that. So I'm just kind of guesstimating the middle. And I'm going to do that on both sides, hopefully relatively evenly. And for this punch, it's nice because I can just line it up as far as it'll go. That was a little off. There we go. There we go. All right. So the other thing I was saying is I probably shouldn't have glued this together until I did the inside, but I can still access it. So in here, we're going to use our Vellum Cardstock, and this should be no more than 3 by 7/8 by 3 by 7/8, because again, this is 4 inches in here and you want it a little smaller to be able to fit. This is only a 3.5 inch piece because that's plenty big for my cloche dome. In fact, I think on these ones I may have even done smaller, maybe like, I don't know if I could quite do 3 by 3, but just big enough to go around the cloche where you can glue a little bit around the edge. So that's what I'm going to do now. And I will say, oh, there goes my garage. Sorry if that's noise in the background. I like glue dots for vellum because this liquid glue oozes a little bit more on vellum, and of course you can see adhesive through vellum, but that's not so much an issue for us because this is going to be on the inside of our box. Now if you did want to cover up, and here comes my husband up from the garage, so I'm not sure he knows I'm recording, sorry if it gets loud. If you did want to cover the inside up with another piece of DSP, for instance, you could do that 3 by 7/8 by 3 by 7/8 piece of DSP and cover up the inside, maybe especially on one like this, because on this one I had to stamp and then fussy cut, and so you can see the fruitcake, which maybe you like, but if you don't like that, you could cover that up. The thing I like about the vellum is, of course, it's a little see-through, kind of frosty, which is kind of wintry, right? And you can get a little sneak peek of the treats inside, whether it's candies or what have you. I see someone's watching. Thank you, Francis. Appreciate your support. You are really the best. This group is the best. You know, I love it. And so thank you for providing this opportunity and being here. All right. So I'm just smoothing that down on the inside. You can see I put my glue just around the edge. And now I'm going to add my little seams. So the fruitcake, like I said, I stamped and fussy cut. For this one, I have dies from the Cloche Dies. So I have 2 little snowbanks here and 3 trees. The dies actually do 4 sizes of trees. There's an even smaller one than this, but I wanted to fill the space as much as I could. And for this, I do use the liquid glue, and I just make sure I put it on everything so it's seen kind of uniformly through. One key is to blow off all the dust, because otherwise you're going to see that. If you look closely at these, there's a little dust trapped in there, and maybe that's somewhat inevitable, but trying to avoid it as much as possible. So I'm just putting glue all over this tree, but only a little bit, and really just barely squeezing any out. Hopefully you can see that. While I kind of use the fine tip of this glue to spread it around. It actually kind of looks like branches on the tree. It's probably hard to see, but all right. So I'm gonna kind of guess where that tree is gonna go up here. I don't want to move it around too much because I don't want to have too much, again, glue kind of where it shouldn't be on the vellum, making the inside of my box sticky. Press that down. All right, and I do the trees first because they're in the foreground and the snowbanks are going to be behind them. On this one, you might be able to see I did a second set of the holly berries and leaves, and I have that on first in front of the full fruitcake, so that way it's in the foreground. I'm sure it's hard to see on here. I'll have pictures up as well on my blog and on the Facebook group, but it's in front there, so you can see it maybe. In person you can see it. All right, so let me keep going with my trees here. I wasn't sure that this project would fill the time because it's so simple, and that's part of the reason I wanted to do it start to finish in front of you, and I had that second one ready to go too in case I needed to make another, but time is flying. Always does this time of year, don't you find? I think the holidays makes this season seem like time goes faster. Which is a little sad because I like this season a lot. I wouldn't mind it taking its time. But I'd love to hear what y'all are doing for the holidays, what traditions you have when it comes to crafting and gifting or anything else. I will be getting to see family, both sides of my family, I think, which is great. Wasn't sure that would be possible this year, but it's always good to see them. I just realized that I wanted this little tree in the very front. Get some dust off there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to try to slip him under that medium tree before it dries. Notice I didn't press it down yet. So hopefully I can slip it under there. If not, that's okay. But you know, I figure small trees are usually in the foreground, big trees are usually in the background, right? So they get bigger. Well, actually, they look smaller as they get further away from us if they're the same size, but pine trees, you know, the bigger ones grow. Well, is that even true? I was going to say the bigger ones grow the further away you get, the higher up you go. But actually, I think trees get shorter the higher up you go. So I don't know why I like it this way. I guess because if I put the big trees in the front and the little trees in the back, you would not see the little trees. All right, so now my snowbanks. So I'm going to put this first one that's a little wavier. It's got a little more character to it in the front. And then I'll use the other one to fill in any gaps in the back. So I don't want floating trees in my cloche. Oh, I see some other people have joined. Yay! Thank you, Rebecca. If you guys didn't catch yesterday's presentations, part 1 of this stamp along this month on, again, the Sunshine SU Demos Facebook page, there were 3. And then there's one more today after this at 3 o'clock. So make sure you hang out for those. All right, so I put one tree a little high. This is what happens when you make a project and then several weeks later make it again live without kind of checking things. But look, I'm going to be able to fix it. So I just want to make sure my trees are grounded in snow and not floating away. And then as soon as I get this last piece down, we will stamp and add our sentiment, and then I will show you the other projects real quick that I made with this set of products. All right. And actually, I may hold on the sentiment because y'all know how to stamp a sentiment, and you can see this one that I did to my left. And that way we can get those other projects their moment. Okay. So there we go. So I don't think it looks too bad on the inside, but again, you could cover it up if you wanted or if you didn't want the window to see through. But there it is from the front. So I would just add my sentiment. It's the most wonderful time of the year in Night of Navy there. And I did kind of put it so it's like the cloche is resting, almost like the sentiment is the base of the cloche. And gosh, I really like the white with the navy. That really pops. And so I would obviously put my lid on my base there. And again, I'll be doing another one of these. I'll put a picture up with the Merry Merlot to kind of match my Night of Navy. So I'll have kind of a subtle pair and a regal pair. Or I guess these are neutrals, actually. These are part of our neutrals collection. So let me move the unfinished one out of the way and show you some of these other projects. So, of course, you can't make projects with this set without using the shaker domes. So here's a shaker card I made, again, for Christmas. The magic of Christmas never ends. Love the birds because my last name is Byrd. And I've got some, sorry, non-SU, I almost said sprinkles, glitter in there because I didn't have any of our sequins, but our sequins would be great in there. Because I was using glitter, I did add a little bit on the snowflakes that are part of that stamp with the branches. So there's the Christmas version. This is not a Thanksgiving version. This is actually a birthday card. So I used the cupcakes from the Sweets and Treats stamp set. This one is the classic Cloche stamp set. And a tasty treat for someone sweet. And these dies, the Cloche dies, will cut out these beautiful kind of wood bases for your cloche. And so again, this is crumb cake and smoky slate. And one thing I did is I used the Stampin' Write markers to color this top piece. So there's just a piece of crumb cake and smoky slate behind here. The dies cut out that little rectangular strip, and then they cut out this wood grain looking strip, and I used the markers just to darken that a little bit in the same color, tone on tone, but just to make it stand out a little bit more. So I've got those shaker cards. And then this card I'm really excited about because I kind of came up with the design. I haven't seen one like this. Maybe others have done one. Share them if you have. But I'm not even sure what to call it. Maybe a trifold card. I had this challenge presented to me where I wasn't going to have enough shaker domes in time for my class. So I thought, well, how can we make some great, cards that really showcase what these dies can do without having the domes for every project? So this is a little trifold note card. And I used the markers again so that I would only be using parts of the stamps from both sets. So I could just have like the first line on one side and the second line on another side. You'll see here in a moment. So this one says, any way you slice it. And then this is up on dimensionals so that way it holds that piece. I'm thankful for you. So any way you slice it, I'm thankful for you. And then it opens one more time. So again, maybe like a trifold card. And then love ya on the inside. So I thought that was really fun. That's the kind of Thanksgiving themed one. And then here's the Christmas one. Let me pop it back in place. There we go. So this one says warmth, joy, to carefully open it up, and happiness. And so there you have them. So hopefully that gives you some inspiration for using up these products if you have them. If you don't have them, they are part of the Last Chance product promotion right now. So both stamp sets are being retired as soon as supplies run out or by the new year. And the Cloche dies are being retired and are actually 50% off. So now's a great time to get them. If you do have them or get them, don't forget, like I did, to get more of the shaker domes. Those are still available, but we'll be retiring as well. So happy holidays, whether it's a belated happy Thanksgiving or an early Merry Christmas or anything else you celebrate this time of year. It's always so good to be with y'all. Thank you for watching. Keep commenting whether you're watching this on replay or not. And thanks again just so much for being here with me. Happy crafting.